Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson and Tony Sukalis with some breaking news that we just reported on BamaInsider.com. Sources have confirmed that at least 5 players have tested positive for COVID-19. Now, there's a lot of questions, and we've reached out to the university for an official statement, so keep tabs on BamaInsider.com for the latest information. We obviously have a lot of questions. I know you have a lot of questions. This is something that is probably going to happen more and more as we continue to push forward into the summertime. My questions, just opening up, is, what type of precautions are going to be taking place going forward? I know that the players were just tested earlier this week, and this was bound to happen. Tony, what type of questions are we trying to seek out moving forward when we try to understand this process?
I think we just want to know what's next, right? I think what's the Alabama's next step? How are they gonna move forward? I don't necessarily think it's a huge surprise if you have a team full of how many players are on the roster? 85.
Mm-hmm.
That some of them are probably going to have contracted the virus. Just it's a matter of probability. So this is always going to be a case of how the university is going to handle it, and it'll be interesting to see how that will occur.
Yeah, I think I think for me, I'm trying to figure out how often are these players going to be tested going forward. Is it going to be a weekly thing? And the same thing goes for the coaches going forward as well. And I'm also curious to see if Alabama continues to allow these summer workouts, these voluntary summer workouts with all these players getting together. Because let's just theoretically say we don't know which players tested positive. Obviously, that's a privacy issue. But let's just say players were together. Now everybody's exposed. Now, does this mean that voluntary workouts stop for these next 2 weeks? What is the process going forward? Do you quarantine these particular players? There's just so many questions when you look at this particular instance. And, it's not just the Alabama thing, because I guarantee you there's going to be other schools. As I said earlier, Oklahoma State is one of them. So kind of what's the process going forward? And, is this something that we're going to get past? I mean, just so many questions. I don't even know where to begin, right? So, there's so much to be asking right now.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of questions. I really can't say much because I don't know what Alabama's plans are or what the full state of this is, but it's really just a wait and see thing. I think I can assure you that Alabama is going to be smart about this, and I'm confident that there's the plan in place too as well. So I'm sure that they were planning on this, and they have something to do moving forward.
Yeah, and it being so early still, it's June. You have a couple months to prepare. And I think this could also be a good learning point to figure out what exactly to do now, right? Because we're only going to learn from this particular instance. So you have, a few players that do test positive. How is this? What are you going to do now? And what is the learning process going to be? Because you haven't had to face anything like this before. I'm not sure if any of those players had particular, or even showing signs of COVID. That would be something that, would be interesting to know, because I think in the English Premier League, which I know you follow, Tony, they tested quite a few of those, all of those players. And I think some of those players that came back tested positive had no signs at all and were actually performing at their peak level. So this is something, it's going to be a learning experience moving forward. I'm really curious to see what steps are taken. For me, I'm curious to see what Alabama does with voluntary workouts as we push towards June.
Yeah, and not all of these questions we'll find out the answer to necessarily. There's a lot of privacy issues that go into this. So I think when we're asking these questions, it just kind of goes into the complexity and the different details and it's the headaches that involve in this whole process, because there's a lot of things that you have to figure out and test for and take precautions for. So you're just gonna have to see moving forward, what happens really.
All right. Give me one quick second, because I'm updating something right now on our website. And if you want to read kind of the skeleton that we've put out of the story, you can go to BamaInsider.com and kind of learn, what we've learned right now. Tony, if you could just talk about for the next minute or so, what are we as a staff trying to figure out as we push forward, and what type of steps do we go for next when working with the University of Alabama, and kind of what's the game plan going forward, kind of so we can inform our subscribers and our readers about what's to take place next.
Yeah, really what we're just trying to do is we've reached out to the university for confirmation, also for their plan moving forward, their protocol, and the two things that they don't necessarily have to give us, but it would certainly be interesting to know. And I think there's a lot of people that are interested with that plan and how things will be addressed and the precautionary steps that are to be made.
What I mean, let's talk kind of fast forward into the season. I mean, I'd be curious to see from what transpires from here, how that plays into the actual season. Because let's say a couple more players test positive, but before the first game, before the second game, before their game, what do you do with those particular players? And if they've been exposed to the entire team, does the team not play? Does the game get pushed back? I mean, there's just so many question marks within this situation. It's just like, what do you do with the players that have tested positive? Because in football, everybody's mixed in together. It's not a sport where it's not individualized. Everybody's working together. And as you've seen on social media, everybody's been working together at the band practice field. All those guys together. No mass. They've just all been working together. So theoretically, everybody, could be exposed to this from the entire team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering the same things, and I have no idea that's really the biggest question here that I've heard the most is what does happen if right before a game, Mac Jones or anybody, anybody tests
Anybody.
positive
Mm-hmm.
for this disease. I mean, they're obviously not going to be able to play in the game, and then is there going to be a way to find out how many people, test positive that quickly? It's really complex. There's just so many complexities, and this is why this was never an easy process. Like I said, I'm sure that there's plans and all these things have been discussed by people smarter than I, with probably a way better understanding of the situation than I. But yeah, it can be a real mess. I think it's safe to say that this whole thing can be a real mess.
And I think just across the entire landscape of the college football spectrum, there's going to be teams that face these difficult scenarios, different situations, and different teams have the ability to deal with them in different ways. So Alabama, for example, it seems like there's some sort of echo coming through. I don't know if is that on your side, Tony?
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's coming from. But as I was saying, there's just a lot of different scenarios that could shake out, and especially for the actual season. I mean, now we're in summertime where you can kind of put a cap on things and develop some sort of a game plan. But I'm asking about as we get closer to the college football season. Now, it does seem like there's a little bit of light that USC and Alabama is a game that's going to take place. And I know we've talked about it before, where there could be potential other scenarios for that first game. But it looks like USC wants to march on. Alabama wants to march on. But how do you march on when players are testing positive for COVID-19? I guess we'll have to figure that out moving forward. And those are the biggest question marks. But as we reported today on BamaInsider.com, we've learned that players have tested positive for COVID-19. And Alabama, we're waiting for some sort of official statement. And that's kind of where we are for right now. It's something that, is going to be tough to deal with. And I guess going forward as well, Tony, a lot of schools have been taking the approach to stop the academic calendar at the Thanksgiving benchmark. So families can, the players and probably not the players, but the students can go home after the Thanksgiving break. What's your kind of take on that? It seems like Alabama hasn't announced that approach, but several universities have across the country. What's your take on that?
I think the plan there, from my understanding, is you would just take out fall break and then tack that onto the end, removing a possibility for people to go other places and therefore catch and or spread the virus. So, I mean, if you get rid of that fall break when a lot of students come, leave campus and then come back, I think then you're just ending it a week earlier. Because, I mean, Alabama, at least at Alabama, school ends the week after Thanksgiving anyway. So that's your final week. So, so I guess it'd just be like cutting it a week shorter, because you're also not getting rid of, you'll basically just work through that fall break period.
And how does that work with the college football schedule? Because the last game for that Auburn game is usually falls within that Thanksgiving time. So theoretically, you could play that Auburn game if the season does pan out, and then I'd be curious to see if they send the athletes home or how that works out. But that would be the time period, right, Tony?
Yeah, what I'm saying is I don't know if it'll affect the athletes at all. I think it's just they don't want students going on their fall break and coming back. So there's only so many days of school. So if they're going to work through the fall break, then they'll just take that week off sooner. So it's like more of a block instead of coming and going.
Now, do you have, like, just you personally, do you have any questions that you're kind of seeking to find out during this process? For me, as I said, my biggest question for right now is not even about the college football season. It's about voluntary summer workouts. Now, depending on how Alabama approaches this, are voluntary summer workouts going to continue as they've been heating up? I mean, you've seen all the footage on Twitter, on social media about these guys working out at the practice field. Is that still at the band practice field? Is that still going to take place? That's my question. What about for you, Tony?
I have no idea. I have a lot of questions. I mean, I think everyone has so many questions about just in general, in society in general, and just, when is this? How is this going to be resolved in a lot of different aspects, and what's the best way to really attack this disease, and the precautions and what's safe, what's not safe. I think everyone has these questions, and it's just such a gray area, or it's just such a tough time in society that there's a lot of questions out there. So any questions I have are probably the same as everyone out here listening would have.
Now, we both live in Tuscaloosa. If you're just watching us, thank you for joining. Please like and subscribe. We appreciate your support on BamaInsider.com. Tony and I both live in Tuscaloosa, and in Tuscaloosa, it's pretty much been, things are getting back to normal. You're starting to see more restaurants opening up. You're starting to see, things kind of be back to normal in a sense. And I'm curious if that's going to continue as the trend going forward, right? I mean, Tony, like I said, you live in Tuscaloosa. Has it been pretty much things getting back to normal in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I, for one, I'm trying to still social distance as best as I can. I'm wearing a mask when I go to the grocery store, and I see other people wearing a mask, but I also see other people not wearing a mask. And I see, that there's been some bars on campus they look to be full to capacity. I walk by a World of Beer all the time, if I'm out on a walk, and there's a ton of people there,
Yeah, there is.
So, I don't know. I don't know. It does kind of at some point seem back to normal. I think everyone has their own sense of normal, but yeah, I can see what you mean where, things it's almost like an eerie normal because, is it too soon? And there's all these questions, so, but yeah, I can see what you mean.
And I think, like, getting back to what I talked about earlier is, I have no idea which players tested positive. I have no idea if there was any symptoms, but it's so strange with this particular virus because, as I alluded to earlier, we're talking about the Premier League players. Those guys didn't even have any signs, so it could be this silent virus that you have. You don't even know you have it, and you're passing along. That's what makes it so much more dangerous, as well as, and I don't know. It's so interesting to see, the play out in different areas. But I do know statistically that Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, I think those areas aren't necessarily trending in the right direction. So hopefully we get past that and we get some sort of normalcy. But getting back to the original story, which is posted on Bama Insider, and you can read what we know, and we'll keep you updated as we move forward on BamaInsider.com. But at least 5 players have tested positive for COVID-19. Players were tested earlier this week, and we're trying to seek out more information to deliver the news to you as accurately, obviously, as we can. And, so stay with BamaInsider.com. We'll continue to provide what we know. Hopefully we can get some sort of a statement from the university if they even do release one. But this is new to everybody. And I think it was Oklahoma State who was the first university to have football players test positive. And obviously this is going to be a national story. So please, stick with us. And there's a lot of question marks. I know, neither Tony or I are experts in this field. You know, we talk Alabama football every single day, but when it comes to situations like this, it's obviously over a lot of people's heads. So there's really there's people in this position that are trying to figure out what the best course of action is, and hopefully, number one, these student athletes and everybody is okay. You know, that's the number one thing, and trying to figure out and formulate a plan to best go about, workouts will be the next situation. I know there was an article on one of our sister sites, warchant.com, which covers Florida State, and it has the players working out in masks. Now, I haven't seen any players that are, in those social media clips that have been wearing masks. Is that going to be something that is implemented going forward? I guess that would be another question mark. But, you can stick with our coverage at BamaInsider.com. And we just wanted to come up real quick and, kind of talk about this particular situation as there's a lot of question marks, but we'll continue to bring you the news at BamaInsider.com. For Tony Tsoukalos, he's our team writer. My name is Kyle Henderson, reporting from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We'll catch up with you guys soon. Thanks for watching today.